Hello, and welcome to the Rewrite Your History 2.0 Summit. I am so excited about who I have with us today, Lisa Ramano. She just got back from an amazing, magical trip that she did with some of her clients, and will be sharing probably a little bit about that today because she's just got home. And so I really want to acknowledge her and her time that she's giving to this summit, because I really believe, I got goosebumps because I believe it so much, that she has so much to give our listeners, our viewers, with today's interview. So let me just go ahead and do a little introduction, and then we'll just get right in there. So Lisa Ramano is a certified life coach specializing in mentoring and coaching abused children, adult children, excuse me. And she has dedicated her life to assisting wounded adult children of alcoholics and victims of narcissistic abuse break through the veils of unconsciousness that have had them unknowingly repeating dysfunctional patterns from the past with her breakthrough programs. Lisa has also written several books and has several audios available on her website if you're ready to dig in and face the faulty childhood programming, keeping you stuck, repeating those same negative patterns. So welcome, Lisa. Thank you for being here today.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. Well, that's what this summit is about. It's about breakthroughing those limiting beliefs, the past. And I know from my own experience that from child abuse, it was more actually of sexual abuse and being around alcoholics. I was born in the 70s, so it was kind of normal as a child, I think. And then being an adult, though, I didn't know that it was actually impacting the way I was living until my late 30s. So I'm really excited about having here, because there's a lot of people, I'm sure, with that kind of same experience. So I'm just gonna have you share more about yourself and how did you get into this kind of coaching?
Well, interestingly enough, I always felt very isolated as a little girl and alone, and always thought, it's me. There must be something wrong with me, because I could never gain my mother's validation. My father was always just too busy to hear any of us out. And it was commonplace to be called a liar, and it was commonplace to be called a little bitch and a little brat and a bad little girl. It was commonplace to have an adult slap you upside the head just for stepping left. It was commonplace for it to be insinuated that you were just a pain in the ass for asking questions.
Yeah.
So my house was very abrasive, but it looked perfect from the outside, which was very confusing. So my inner reality never matched my outer reality, which caused me to grow up with tremendous self-doubt and anxiety. I had several types of eating disorders through my teenage years. Before that, I was counting, memorizing license plates, pulling hair out of my head, just trying to self-soothe, never really realizing that those behaviors were ways that my mind and my psyche was coming up with to help me soothe tremendous anxiety that I couldn't name and I couldn't manage all on my own.
Yeah.
We had mental illness in my family. One of my aunts was paranoid schizophrenic. So I was terrified to tell people what was really going on with me. And so I ended up, fast forward, I was a love addict probably by the time I was 7 years old, so codependent, writing love songs and poetry, wishing a boy would come rescue me. By the time I was 15, I was completely infatuated with the boy and thought I was going to marry him. That blew up. And by the time I was 21, I was engaged. Walked down the aisle at 23, knew I shouldn't have been doing it, but did it anyway. Told myself, I'll just love him so much, it'll work out.
Yeah.
And threw myself into that relationship, and I ended up with migraine headaches, chronic asthma, rashes they couldn't figure out. My hair was falling out. I blew out my thyroid. I was just getting worse and worse, and I was really afraid I was going to die. I had such bad panic attacks that I was getting tunnel vision, where I literally couldn't see anything peripherally. It was just a pinhole. Scared the crap out of me. And I was just, my heart, diagnosed with mitral valve prolapse, irregular heartbeat. I mean, I was really, really failing. And one day my allergist said, you better listen to your body because your body is listening to you. And it was the first time in my life an adult asked me to check in with myself.
Wow.
And I didn't even like the doctor. I really didn't like him.
Yeah.
But I couldn't, it echoed in my head for days and days and days. And then I started saying, maybe I should be listening to myself. And I told my husband how I was feeling about our marriage and suggested we could go into therapy. And he said, well, if you feel crazy, you should go.
Yeah.
Gaslighting me the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
That I was ashamed to like continue on that path. But so I went into therapy by myself. And I sat down with the therapist and I said, I think I'm crazy. Nobody can validate my reality. I try to tell my parents I'm not happy and they tell me that I'm just selfish, that I'm too picky. I tell my husband that I'm not happy and he tells me that I'm just so selfish. What's wrong with me? That I should kiss his feet. And my therapist said, well, I've got good news, I've got bad news. The good news is you're not crazy. The bad news is you're severely codependent. You care more about what other people think about you than what you think about you. And it blew me out of my chair because I had gone to nursing school and the only time I had heard the term codependency was in relationship to alcoholics.
Yeah.
I didn't drink and my ex-husband didn't drink. So I was confused.
Yeah.
And then he asked me, is there alcoholism in your family? I said, no, my parents don't drink. And he said, that's not what I asked you. And he centered me and he had my attention because my mind was all over the place.
Yeah.
He said, listen to my question. Is there any alcoholism in your family? And I said, well, yeah, both my grandparents on both sides are alcoholics. And he said, so your parents are adult children of alcoholics. I had never made the connection.
Yeah.
And I said, I guess so. He said, any recovery? I said, no. He said, then you were essentially raised by people who think very much like alcoholics.
Wow.
And I thought, wow. So that's the beginning of my journey. And then I learned everything I could about codependency. And then along my path, I realized that I had been, just came up with the word, programmed to be codependent. And then I looked at my mother and said, so was she. And I thought about my grandmother who suffered domestic violence at the hands of my alcoholic grandfather. So did she. And then I looked at my kids and I said, holy crap, so will they if I don't wake the hell up. Wow. And that set me on the path.
Wow.
That set me on the path.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, there was a lot that you just said that I can totally relate to.
I'm sure.
Wow.
I'm sure. And it scared me.
Yeah.
I was so unhappy. I was so miserable. Every day was painful.
Yeah.
Living with somebody who was constantly gaslighting me and thinking it was all my fault. Going to my mother and having her say, it's you, Lisa, you're the problem. You've always been this way. Since a little girl, you've always been a problem. And feeling, where do I go with this reality? And then just stuffing it, and day by day, just getting sicker. And then realizing the great impetus for me was when I realized I was doing this to my children.
Yeah.
But at the time, when I went to the bookstores back in the day, it was, the internet wasn't so, there was no such thing. I went to Barnes & Noble like everybody else, and I started grabbing books on codependency. And what I found was there was a big hole in the genre because I could find out what codependency was, but no book could tell me what exactly to do about being codependent. How do I break this cycle? I need a step-by-step program to get me out of this, and there was none. Wow. So looking back, I think that I went through everything I went through without a template, so that I could actually come and teach people what I learned.
That is so delicious.
It's a tough road.
Yeah, I bet. Oh my gosh. Wow. So what is codependency really?
Well, it's part of my mission on planet Earth is to broaden the umbrella of what codependency is. Part of the reason it didn't click for me, and I didn't go looking for the term codependency, was because I thought, it just relates to men and women who are married to alcoholics.
Yeah.
So
That's
even
what
though
I've
I
always
was
said.
severely codependent, I didn't think the label applied. So I didn't even look. I didn't even think that the label ACOA or ACA applied because I was removed. My parents weren't alcoholics. So
Right.
there was all this information out there that could have helped me, but I missed it because I didn't even know I was depressed. I was diagnosed with depression. I
Yeah.
didn't even know that. So I was missing all this amazing information because inside I was suffering from rumination, obsessive thoughts, panic attacks, anxiety. Every time I went to a therapist before my last, they wanted to slap me with a diagnosis. Oh, you have panic disorder. Oh, you have anxiety disorder. It was much deeper than that. There was a reason I was anxious. And once I realized all those pieces of the puzzle fit in,
Mm-hmm.
everything made sense. Of course I was depressed. I was living with somebody who was gaslighting me. It was a covert narcissist. Of course I was depressed. I was a codependent seeking validation outside of myself. Of course I was codependent. I was afraid of rocking the boat. I had no boundaries. I had no love for myself. To me, I needed to be needed. That made sense. Because if you
Yeah.
need me, you'd never leave me.
Yeah.
If you need me,
Right.
there's my worth. I'm not worthy because I'm a child of the universe. I'm worthy because I'm wiping your ass and I'm wiping your nose and I'm folding your socks and I'm taking your mother to the doctor's appointments and I'm scrubbing the floors with bleach and vinegar. That's why I'm worthy.
Yep.
But I'm not worthy because I am.
Yeah.
So codependency really, if you have very low self-esteem, if you have no boundaries, if you stay in relationships that are painful and that don't fulfill you, if you don't yet know how to live for yourself, if you stay in relationships longer than you should, if you feel like you need to be needed, if you aren't able to speak for yourself, if you attract people who abuse you and get confused in that, you may be codependent. If you are dependent on relationships for a sense of self and a sense of grounding.
Yeah.
The way I think about a narcissist as a giant shark. And you ever see those little fish that attach themselves to the shark?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're looking to feed off of the scraps that the shark doesn't consume, right? So
Yeah.
that's how they feed. So a codependent is sort of like, we kind of like need another person to survive
Mm.
because we don't feel good. We get our sense of self from taking care of other people.
Yeah.
And it is no way to live. It is no
Wow.
way to live because you
No.
attract people who abuse you because
Right.
you are other focused
Yeah.
and people who attract codependents are self-focused.
Yeah.
So you have two people in a relationship worried about one person because a codependent lacks a self.
Yeah.
Whatever, and they'll say yes when they mean no,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll take care of you even at the expense of themselves.
Yeah.
And they'll think that this is honorable, but they're secretly resentful.
Wow. Which brings on all that, the diseases and,
Of course.
oh my goodness. Wow.
And we don't even know we're doing it.
Right.
And sometimes what screwed me up a lot was, I'd gone to Bible school. My mother was born again Christian. So the rhetoric was, you're supposed to put other people before yourself. And then when I was going through my recovery, I confronted my mother. I said, Mom, you've got the commandment all wrong. The commandment is love others as you love the self. I'm supposed to love myself first. And that kind of, she was confused.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
You're supposed to
Wow.
love yourself first before you love anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear a lot of people, or even see stuff on Facebook on the timelines. You're being selfish if you're not putting your children first, or, and I just immediately comment that is so not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's backwards, totally backwards.
I think the thing I've coached so many people, and what I discover is that language gets us in trouble because
Yes.
the way we interpret and perceive, what
Mm-hmm.
does it mean to put my children first?
Yeah.
That what it means is that in the way I look at it is I'm supposed to worry about my children. My children are not supposed to worry about me.
That's right.
But when it comes to care, yes, of course, I have to worry about my children, and their needs do have to come. Their needs have to come before my own needs, I think.
Yeah.
Meaning
Yeah.
that if we're at a kitchen table, my kids are gonna eat before I eat.
Right.
I'm gonna make sure that I get something so I can continue to take care of them.
Right.
We have to, language gets us in trouble, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And there are some people who, believe me, there are some people who would say they'd take that comment to the extreme. For instance, a narcissistic father or a narcissistic mother,
Yeah.
right? So we just got to be careful with language, because it can be,
Man.
depending on who's perceiving that comment,
Right.
determines the outcome. So if you're a healthy mom and you've got your house in order, and you know that you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your children,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
have to. You can't
Yeah.
neglect your children at the expense of taking care of yourself either. So it's
Yeah.
such a balance.
Yeah. If you're neglecting one area, it's falling apart everywhere. That's the way it's always how I've experienced it.
You know,
Is it doesn't matter what area it is that you're neglecting, spiritual, yourself, your children, business. If something's out of sync and not working, it impacts the rest of it.
oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I agree. We have to
Well,
take care of ourselves. Absolutely.
so how did you, so you've discovered all this, and now your journey for healing begins. What does that look like for you?
Well, the first thing that I have to say is that I had to learn to hold on to myself, because codependents, their mood is it is subject to the moods of others. And I noticed that when my ex-husband walked in, my whole vibration changed. And
Mm,
so did the mood of my children. It was just, and when I became the observer of my experience rather than the reactor, because I was so below the veil and I was just reacting,
yeah.
he represented my mother. I married my mother's emotional twin. And I
Yeah.
realize now it's because I suffered from attachment trauma. I never gained her validation. And through him, I was hoping that I would get the pseudo maternal validation I never received. Never happened, never happened.
Yeah.
But one of the first things that I realized when I was waking up, and, I call it, peeking through the veil of unconsciousness,
Mhm.
I was able to see that I was codependent, and I was recreating the pattern.
Mm,
So then I realized I have to become an observer. If I'm going to change it, I have to observe what I'm doing. So
yeah.
one of the first things I realized was that my mood changed immediately when he walked in. So one of the first things in my head was, hold on to yourself. So I would become aware of my vibrational field and how I was feeling prior to hearing the garage door open, which meant he was coming in the house.
Mhm.
And I would
Yeah.
say to myself in my head, hold on to the way you feel. Just
Yeah.
hold on to the way you feel. And so if I was up, I stayed up, and I was be joking around with the kids, even though he walked in and he was low.
Yeah.
And he'd bang a cabinet and he'd want me to go low, and I just stayed high.
Yeah.
And that was me breaking the patterns of dysfunction between the two of us. So that was one of the things that I remember very clearly doing. And
Wow.
then I stopped talking to people that kept telling me that I was crazy.
Yeah. Good for you.
And
Wow. That takes a lot of courage.
you know what it was? It was the fear that I was doing to my children what was done to me, and I was so unhappy. I didn't want them to ever experience what I experienced. So I
Yeah.
sort of put myself 20 or 30 years down the timeline and said, what if this was your kid? What if you were
Wow.
gone? What if you were gone? And your kids can't say, hey, mom, I don't know what to do about this moron, whatever.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
what would I want for them? And I
Mhm.
said, I'd want them to be able to stop talking to people who put them down, stop seeking validation, and to honor how they feel and move ahead, and to prepare themselves for when this comes to an end. So I just imagined that I was my son or my daughters, one of them. And
Yeah.
I said, what would I want them to do? And I just imagined myself doing that.
So do you think that it's possible for a relationship where that there's that kind of codependency, and then the narcissist, I can't even say the word narcissism happening, if they were both working through it and can actually have a working marriage.
Yeah, I've actually coached. If you're talking about two codependents, there are some people that say that codependents only marry narcissists. I don't believe that. You know, I believe that a codependent can marry another codependent person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they play out different dynamics and they'll actually switch roles. They'll
Wow.
actually switch roles. The typical codependent relationship is there is someone who is obviously emotionally needy and verbalizes, I love you, I want to spend time with you. And the other codependent more avoids the contact.
Yeah.
So they withhold and they enjoy being chased. And then what happens is the pursuing codependent eventually says, screw this, I'm not chasing him anymore, or I'm not chasing her anymore. And she starts to shut down. And then all of a sudden, the partner notices that she's not chasing him anymore. And he sends her flowers, or he notices her brand new shoes, or he compliments her. And now she feels seen. And now for a couple of days, they're good. And then what happens is eventually he gets comfortable with holding again. And the dynamic goes back and forth. So codependent relationships like a pendulum.
Yeah.
That relationship can be healed only if both people recognize the error of their ways and they're committed to the relationship. I've had great success coaching couples.
Wow.
Great success. But when you're dealing with someone who's a true narcissist, they do not see themselves. They do not want to see themselves. They do not want to look at their behavior. They must believe it's the other person's fault.
Wow.
So that's what happened with my ex-husband and I. I went into therapy saying, I'm codependent and I own it. I've been trying to change you. I've been trying to change you.
Yeah.
And I've been nasty and I've been upset and I've been angry because I'm so frustrated because I'm trying to change you.
Yeah.
I need to focus on myself. I need to go to the gym. I need to eat well. I need to take more Epsom salt baths. I need to love myself. Like, that pissed him off. What do you mean?
Really? Wow.
Are you kidding? You're going to take your attention off of me? That's not going to work.
Wow.
That's not going to work.
Oh my God. This is an amazing conversation, because you don't hear this kind of conversation daily, for sure. And no wonder why there's so many people on anxiety medications and antidepressants. Oh my gosh.
That's the road.
They don't even know.
They don't even know that that's.
I got goosebumps. Wow.
And
So what is your programs that you do? You have like 12-week, are they both 12 weeks? The ones that I've seen on your website?
The one program, what I've done in my life is I've written books that I wish were there when I was going through codependency.
Yeah.
And I've written them in stages. So the first book is The Road Back to Me, where that explains how codependency gets downloaded into a child in very innocuous ways. Very innocuous ways. So that people can say, oh my God, I can see myself in this story.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I am this way. And then my road beyond the codependent divorce is you wake up, you realize you married somebody who's narcissistic or on the spectrum and they don't want to get better. You have to leave. Like, you can't stay in that relationship. You're only going to perpetuate the cycle with your children. That's that story. And then I wrote Loving the Self-Affirmations, which that's the link that your viewers and listeners will get. So I wrote 2 affirmation books to help break the programming that's so ingrained in us. And then I wrote Quantum Tools to Help You Heal Your Life Now, which helps you understand how your vibrational tone and how your thoughts are affecting your vibrational frequencies, and how your vibrational frequencies are actually responsible for what you're pulling into your life, including narcissistic others. And then Codependent Now What? It's Not You, It's Your Programming, are a bunch of strategy steps. So I've written books that I know that I would have devoured.
Yeah.
If I need this, and then my programs, I create programs that I also would have needed when I was waking up. So the 12-week breaking program is 12 weeks and the masterclass is 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. And now I've just created a membership site, which is sort of like a maintenance site. So a bunch of programs, a bunch of audios, meditations, and journaling prompts. So the 12-week Break the Coaching program is for somebody who is waking up to the idea they're codependent, or who is realizing I keep attracting narcissistic bosses, narcissistic friends, narcissistic relationships. I've been abused in childhood. I'm an ACOA.
What's
I am
ACOA?
an adult child of an alcoholic.
Okay, got it. Okay.
I was raised by an alcoholic. I was raised by somebody who was narcissistic. I don't feel seen. I have no sense of self. I
Wow.
keep doing this over and over. And so that program takes somebody from lesson 1 all the way up to lesson 12. And it's broken up into 3 modules. There's the awakening phase, where I'm helping explain to people what went wrong, very gentle ways. And it is so difficult. My program is not easy. Week 2 is a killer because it's the consensus is week 2 is like crippling. It really is, because by week 2, you're realizing really what went wrong, and you're being forced to address this attachment trauma. And like this idea that you never felt loved is valid, because when you are raised by people who cannot see you, you do not feel good enough.
Yeah.
And then I ask people, we have to learn to sit in that space and stop denying it, and stop trying, get off the hamster's wheel, and stop trying to be pretty enough, and stop trying to be thin enough, and stop trying to be good enough. Get off the wheel and just accept these feelings so we can process them and release them, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
First 4 weeks, the awakening phase. The second 4 weeks are accountability. I teach people like, were you codependent today? How did that show up for you? What pattern do you need to focus on that you have to break? In a very loving way. And then the last 4 weeks I teach people life skills that they missed, so that they can start planning their life and creating business plans for their life. So
Nice.
when it works, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it works. We just had a woman on the cruise, you mentioned the cruise, who was agoraphobic, never came out of her house, suffered sexual abuse as a child, smoked 40 plus cigarettes a day, learned to do online shopping. Everything came to the front door, and she was shutting down. 3 daughters. They began shutting down. She traveled from Australia by herself to the US to take the breakthrough cruise and travel back home by herself. So this program works. It's just, and I also studied the science of learning, because there were programs out there that I had tried that were like, that didn't work for me, and so I said, why didn't they work? And then I realized that the brain, we learn a certain way. So what I did was I researched the science of learning. I figured out, how does the human brain work? And then I built a program around the science of learning. So I think that's also one of the reasons it sticks.
Wow, that's amazing. You are awesome. So what are some things that you could offer the audience that they could actually apply right now, or what do you want them to know that they need to know, whoever's listening that are dealing with things like this, that they could take away and put into action?
I think the first thing that you want to do is, you have to understand 95% of the people are 95% unconscious 95% of the time.
Yeah.
And when I started doing this research and I started realizing, like, I'm not thinking,
Right.
I'm regurgitating the beliefs and the ideas that were modeled for me in my childhood.
Yeah.
The superego is my mother's voice. It's not even my voice. And that freaked me the hell out. I was like, what? Like, how do I even get to a point where I'm able to drown that voice out? And how do I know if my thoughts are my own thoughts?
Yeah.
So I think the first thing, if you really want to heal in life and become a self-actualized human being, you have to start asking yourself those thought-provoking questions, like, do I really believe that? Why do I believe that? Why do I do that? Ask yourself why.
Yeah.
And if you're not thinking a thought on purpose, then you're regurgitating a thought. Because most people do on Wednesday what they did on Monday.
Mm.
You know, I've coached lawyers who have said, I never wanted to be a lawyer. My father wanted me to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And, okay, what do you want to do? I don't know. Okay, well, it's time to find out. So
Yeah.
then we go back into childhood. What kinds of things did you enjoy doing when you were 3, when you were 4, when you were 5, when no one was looking and you were in your own head? What did you dream? Oh, you know what? I used to love poetry. Start writing poetry. And now he's a publisher.
Nice.
So, you know, but if you don't start thinking about why you're a doctor, why you're a lawyer, why you do this or why you do that, you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
start asking yourself inquisitive questions like that.
Mm.
And also ask yourself if you know the difference between a thought and a feeling, because there's a huge difference. Thinking is not feeling.
That's right.
When you're feeling, you're being directed by something deep, spirit.
Yeah.
When you're thinking, you don't know where the hell it came from. It could have come from the damn Revlon commercial.
Right.
But when you're feeling, you know, you can tune into something very deep, and you have to start listening to how you feel.
Yeah.
So what I do, I've created what's called the 1, 2, 3 process. So if people are resonating with, I don't know what I want, and I don't know what I think, and I don't know what I feel, and I just know how to take care of everybody else. I know minutia. I know details. I know PTA meetings. I know lacrosse games, and I know soccer mom. I'm the soccer mom. I know that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I feel about me. I don't know what's important to me. That's very sad.
It is. Yeah.
But most of us live our lives that way because
Yeah.
we've been programmed to think if you're a good mom or you're a good dad if you're selfless.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
you're selfish if you're getting a manicure or taking an hour-long bubble bath or closing the door for a little while and saying, kids, do not disturb.
Yeah.
You know, so what I ask people to do is you have to start asking yourself how you feel, which is different than thinking. So the 1, 2, 3 process is you accept how you feel, whatever it is. So if you're feeling sad, accept it.
Yeah.
Don't judge it. Don't layer it. I call it layer it. Don't layer it. Just be sad. Wow, I'm sad. My dog died. Wow, I'm sad. Wow, that sucks. Second step is, where do you feel it? Connect to your body, because your body is always sending you signals through your neurological system.
Right.
That's how your feelings speak to you, through the sensations in your body. But we call it anxiety, and we go to the doctor and we medicate it.
Yeah.
My heart's beating fast. I'm getting brain fog. I'm in fight or flight. I'm having anxiety. That's not good. Actually, it is good. It's representing cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Anxiety is an indicator that you're out of alignment. That's all it means.
Yeah.
All it means. And if you can learn to not judge your anxiety and sit on your bed and ask yourself, what is this anxiety telling me? What am I trying to control that I can't control?
Yeah.
What is happening in my life that I don't like?
And what am I afraid of?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what do I wish I could change?
Yeah. Mm.
That's where anxiety is coming from.
Yeah.
That's where anxiety is coming from. So the first is accept how you feel. The second is feel it in your body. For me, when I get anxiety, my head gets foggy because I know I'm in fight or flight. I'm in fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, you're cut off from the prefrontal lobe. You can't make any decisions.
Right.
So when I feel confused and when I can't speak in fluent sentences, I know that I'm out of alignment and I'm feeling sad or anxiety, something's off. So
Yeah.
I connect to that in my body. And then the third step is I decide to do something about the way I feel. Because most of us feel a feeling, we hate the way we feel, and we get stuck.
Yeah.
And we stay there for 20 years.
And pay thousands of dollars for therapy and medications.
Yeah. Oh, I think I married my
Right.
mother. I had that thought when I was like 24, but I stayed married, you know? But I didn't want to look
Yeah.
at thought. I didn't want to look at it. And I didn't want to listen to I used to cry when we had sex. I didn't want to look at it.
Wow.
I didn't want to look at the anxiety. So I stuffed it and stuffed it and stuffed it. And I was destroyed.
Right.
I blew out my thyroid. probably gave myself issues with my heart from just
Yeah.
stuffing and stuffing. So third step is decide what you want to do, because you have to start making decisions for your life and being accountable for how you feel. That creates momentum, right? Because if you're not if you're not making decisions about how you feel, you just stay stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom died of dementia, stuck, married to my father, who's a narcissist. Never made a decision around the marriage, even though she thought about leaving him. She never did. And this poor woman got dementia, lived in a different dimension, I think, because narcissism, if you live with a true narcissist, they can push you into another dimension. Because
Wow.
dementia was the only place, that and church, dementia and church were the only two places my father wouldn't follow her.
Wow.
But she died. So the third step is very important. We have to start making decisions about how we feel. So if I'm unhappy at work and I hate my job, then I have to accept how I feel. Then I have to connect to that feeling in my body so I can honor my temple. And I could say, thank you, Spirit, for speaking to me.
Yeah.
Spirit doesn't jump out of your chest and have a conversation with you across the coffee table.
Right. Of course, that would be nice.
It's easy.
But if you're listening, it's there. Yeah, Spirit
You
is
just have to
there.
hear it and listen to it and then
Yep.
honor it. That's scary. So the third step is make a decision, but there are 3 questions you have to ask yourself. What can't I control? What can I control? And ultimately, how do I want to feel about my life? And so if I know that I'm in a job and it's uncomfortable for me and it's unfulfilling and it's abusive, I can't change the office politics, right? But I can control whether or not I stay in that job. I
Right.
can control whether or not I get certified in something else.
Mm-hmm.
I can control whether or not I start looking for another job someplace else or even move someplace else. I can control that. And
Yeah.
if I know that it's important for me to be in a cohesive work environment, then I know that I need to get my butt in gear and start looking for another job that is in alignment with how I really want to feel, which is I want to
Yeah.
have a cohesive work environment.
Right.
But what a lot of people do, I coach people like, I hate my job. I go, okay, what job would you like to have? Oh, I'd love to be, I don't know, something else. I go, okay, what are we doing about that? Well,
Yeah.
I'm too great, but I need this job. Okay, you need this job, but you just said you don't want to be in this job.
Mm-hmm.
So then what we do is all it is, accept how you feel. You might have fear around leaving the job, and that's okay. That's normal.
Yeah.
Connect with that fear in your body. Then make a decision. What can you control versus what you can't control, and ultimately how you feel, and make the decision there.
Wow.
So you can see the fear and you can
Yeah.
override it. But
Yep.
if you just see the fear and you get stuck, you're not making a decision. You're gonna stay in that job and complain about it.
Yep.
Maybe even die at that position.
Yeah. And that's sad, but it's true. We see it all the time.
Yep. So if anybody's listening, you really have to start paying attention to how you feel. And you have to know that if your value is coming from the way that you look, or even what you do, if
Yeah.
your value comes from taking care of other people, then ask yourself, if all of that disappeared, would you have value?
Yeah.
Because if all of that disappeared, you have to know you still have value. If you're
Yeah.
not taking care of people, if you're not the most attractive person in the room, if you're not the wisest and the brightest, you still have value. So your value has nothing to do with anything that you do. You just have value because you are, period.
Beautiful.
You just have value because you are.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, start asking yourself how you feel.
Yeah.
Start asking yourself and start showing up for yourself in small bits, because it's scary to do that if you've never done it before.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know too, people are just like, yeah, but those self thoughts and stuff. I know I grew up listening to things like voices in your head, and you must be something's mentally wrong with you. Like, yeah. And I'm like, now as an adult, no, like that thinking is really something there for me to look at and see what that's about. It's
Well,
not nothing wrong with me.
No. And the thing is that people think, oh, I've just had a negative thought. Well, it's not your thought. You're ruminating, and it's the conscious field is
Yeah.
only doing what it was created to do. The
Yeah.
conscious field is like a television screen, right? And so television programming. So when you turn on the television, you see television programming. You see what's been programmed, or the program that's been programmed
Right.
into whatever, right? And
Yeah.
the conscious field is only showing you what's been programmed into the subconscious field. So
Yeah.
if I have a negative thought, it is probably not my thought.
Yeah.
It's probably something that I experienced in childhood, or some fear that's showing up. When
Yeah.
you learn not to judge what's in the conscious field, you can heal shame and heal panic, and then you can actually think with the prefrontal lobe and your neocortex.
Yeah.
I have negative thoughts all the time, but I don't attach to them.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's important. That's a key little thing that you just said there. Don't attach to because we have like 60, 80,000 thoughts happening, especially limiting beliefs happening all day long that we're not even conscious of.
Right.
So yeah, attaching to that is where the suffering happens.
Totally. And then so many good people think, I just had this terrible thought. I'm such a negative person.
Oh
No.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
could
That's a
have watched
biggie.
a Lifetime movie. You could have watched a Lifetime movie and seen something terrible in this Lifetime movie. Maybe there was a red car in that scene, and now you're walking down Main Street and you notice a red car. Your brain is just flagging for you when it last saw that red car, and
Yeah.
all the information that's been stored to when you saw that red car. And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you're having images and visions. We don't understand the brain. We don't
Right.
understand how the mind works.
Yeah.
And
It's
the ego thinks that's my thought. No, it's not.
right.
No, it's not. And it's okay. You can have
Yeah.
horrible thoughts as long as you don't attach to them and act on them.
Yeah. Wow.
You override them.
So what I am curious, did you eventually heal your relationship with your mom and dad? Or what?
Heal is like, again, that's one of those words, language again, heal. I healed. And when I healed, I no longer needed their validation or their permission to be a grown ass woman.
Go girl.
When I healed,
Nice.
I no longer needed their permission. I no longer needed their validation. I accepted their faulty perceptions of me, even though they were wrong.
Yeah.
I no longer banged my head up against the wall. Please see me as a good little girl. That was all
Yeah.
over. That
Yeah.
was all over. So I healed. So I was able to deal with my parents on a completely different level. And
Right.
so the abuse stopped, because I began to hold my finger on their tail. So if my father said something stupid, I would say, why would you say that?
Yeah.
Different.
Yep.
Or if my
It's a
mother
whole
said
different
something.
world.
So I learned I'm enough, and you don't get to push me around, and I'm not 12 anymore.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be in my life, you're going to respect me, because my children are not going to watch my mother abuse me.
Got it. That's beautiful.
And they knew like, oh shit, she's different.
Yeah. Yep. That's
So,
exactly the experience I had. I cleaned up what I needed to be accountable for myself.
right.
And then as I also started to notice some of that kind of conversations or things would just come up, I would recognize it. Like you said, you're just observing how you're feeling and monitoring that thing. And then it's just like, bam, why would you say that to me? What does that mean? What are you trying to point to here? And then they're like, huh?
Well, they
It
don't.
throws them off.
Well, it's like the elephant in the room, like
Yeah. Yeah.
alcoholic homes. They're so passive, freaking aggressive.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
gaslighting abounds and triangulation abounds, and the poor children all they want to do is feel loved.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to tell mommy to stop, and they don't even want to, because that risks them being abandoned even more.
Yeah.
So children just tolerate this abuse. And I remember the first time, you know, my therapist said to me, the next time someone says something nasty to you, ask yourself how you feel. And it was on my 36th birthday. My mother, we had pizza for my birthday on paper plates, and which is fine. But my point is, I made the big mistake and said, I'm so tired. And she said, what are you tired for? You didn't lift an effing finger the whole time you were here. And she said it in front of my ex-husband, my children, my sister, my brother, their spouses, and their children. And this is the way my mother treated me my whole life.
Yeah.
And I just looked down and I said, how do I feel? And I was like, wow, I'm going through a divorce. He abuses the shit out of me and she knows it. She invites him to this birthday dinner. I didn't invite him. I said, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
And I just started to cry. And I asked him, and again, I didn't realize I was doing the 1, 2, 3 process then. No one told me, but in retrospect, I was like, I made a decision based on how I felt. And I got up and I walked in the back room. I zipped up my kids' jackets. I said, we're going. And she came in the back room and she said, where are you going? I said, I'm leaving. And she said, what are you leaving for? And I pointed my finger in the face and I said, I'm not 12 anymore. And if a girl ever needed her mother, it was today. It is now. Get out of my way. Get out of my way, Ma. And that was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, my mother and father were like, you know, king and queen. You know, you don't want them. Yep. And she went away. And my father said, oh, where are you going? I said, and I'm done with you too. And my brother's screaming, get out of here, you big drama queen. I said, I am leaving. I'm leaving. I was like, this is batshit crazy. Like, this is a...
I'm sorry, but that, I'm just like, wow. That, like, what a moment of courage and power and taking back. Yeah, wow.
Because there was a moment where I said to myself, she's expecting the elephant to slither under the rug.
Yep.
Because she's gotten away with that my whole life.
Wow.
And here I was saying, I'm not letting that elephant escape. I'm calling that elephant out. I see the elephant. You're being passive aggressive. You're gaslighting me for no reason.
Yeah.
For no reason in front of my children. I'm your daughter. And I was like, I'm done. I'm just done. This is never going to change. And I was able to actually divorce my husband after that because it was so interesting. I realized again, in retrospect, that was all about my attachment trauma. I wanted my mother's approval my whole fucking life.
Yeah.
And I never got it. And she knew I wanted it. And she never gave it to me. And when I said, I have to accept I'm never going to get it. I have to take care of I have to be my own mother. I have to I've got to stop. I'm a grown ass woman with 3 kids. I can't be chasing this person anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm done. And I let go of her. The decision to move forward with my divorce was so much easier. And I realized because I broke the spell, there was this little child in me that wanted this woman's attention and validation, which all children do. And the moment I connected to higher self and I heard, you're never going to get it. It was like, boom. And I was able then to let go of my ex-husband who represented my mother.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
Wow.
But
yeah, we could talk about this all day long.
I know.
Wow. I'm holding back my tears. You're beautiful.
Oh,
so thank you. Did you want to share real quickly about the gift that you're giving the audience?
Sure. I have, I believe firmly in reprogramming the mind, right?
Yep.
That means accepting the nonsense and the bullshit. Excuse me for cursing, but it is what it is. So you got to accept the crap that's been downloaded into your brain. It's not your fault it's there. And you've got to learn to separate it, right? So it's like you have to create a spam filter in your brain. Like you've got to spam this crap. So I've created 2 affirmation books. I'm working on 2 more right now and also a couple of children's books too. But the book that we're giving away is Loving the Self-Affirmations. So it's going to help you heal childhood brainwashing and help you identify the thoughts that you need, that you have to spam, that you have to understand. That's junk data.
Yeah.
So it's very clear. And I think there are 90 days of affirmation. So
wow. Awesome gift. Thank you. Thank you for contributing your time and your knowledge and just your passion for what you are out to. I mean, it's obvious that you're very passionate about people overcoming that trauma, that kind of abuse, and thank you for your contribution to the world. So, and everybody who's watching, you can get your free gift down below. Hit reply and share with us what you got from today. What was your biggest takeaway? We'd love to hear your feedback. So you guys have a great day, and thank you again, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.